Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrient Ag Solutions. Well, early this morning here on March 29th, I was up kind of keeping an eye on the news and I heard news that the large container ship Ever Given had finally been kind of dislodged and back afloat. Apparently, it was helped along by the full moon and the high tide. But again, I just thought we'd take a quick look. Today, at least, there's a north-south wind cutting across the Suez Canal instead of that strong crosswind that we saw in our earlier analysis. So I thought I'd just kind of keep you up to speed on that. From there, I'd like to show you how many severe weather reports we had over the last couple of weeks here. So this goes back all the way to the 13th of March. And what it shows you here is that from then all the way up until just yesterday, we've had over 1,300 reports of severe weather. Of course, we've had 3 outbreaks of tornadoes across parts of the Mid-South and the Southeast. And each open circle that you see here is one of those separate 1,300 reports of severe storms. From there, let's just take a look at the last week's worth of total accumulated precipitation. And I'm sure your eye is drawn to the incredibly heavy rain that we saw right here cutting across parts of the Tennessee Valley. We know we've now seen that there have been several fatalities due to the flooding, especially right through the mid part here of Tennessee. But as you look at this map kind of on the whole, it's clear that we've had substantial portions of the lower Mississippi River Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and the Southeast that have been able to gain over 6 inches of total rainfall just in the last 7 days. Thinking about this, I wanted to go back and just do a quick bit of model verification. And we have this new update in the GFS called the GFS V16. Now, what is quite surprising about this single event is that the GFS V16 a week ago actually did a pretty good job at picking up on this pattern. You can see that it had highlighted that region right into there a week ago as having the potential for heavy rain. Same thing down here, at the mouth of the Mississippi River. Some areas that it missed on was the precipitation that was coming right in through this area and also North Dakota. But what I'd like to do is, we're going to keep comparing models. So let's go back to total accumulated precip. Again, we're kind of zoomed in here a bit in the U.S. And then this is what the European model said. Now, again, this was from 1 week ago. And what we're looking at here is, the European at that time did not pick up on the heavy precip pattern. In fact, it had it much farther to the south, while it did get down here much better. What the European did succeed with was actually picking up on the back edge of where this heavier precipitation was going to be versus the GFS, which was much too wet here in parts of the Canadian Prairie and Northern Plains. So I just thought you might like to see some of this analysis. And what this means to me is that with the new upgrade of the GFS, I think we're going to have to continue to do more model blending. I believe that this upgrade was substantial, and I think we're going to have to just now kind of look at both of them more frequently than I had been doing in the past. Okay. So soil moisture values, because of this area that has continued to be missed by precipitation. And by the way, folks, there is some news that I want you to stick around for with the change in the week 2 pattern if you're in the Dakotas here. But this area continues to be extremely dry. Elsewhere around the country, you can see what we have, of course, our very saturated soils through parts of the Mid-South and the Tennessee Valley. We're going to take a look here in a few minutes at even some more rain that's going to be coming into that area. But I'd like to show you the updated statistics here. Now, this is just the month of March. We're just trying to see here regions that have had what could be record-setting in their March precipitation. Very dry across the northern tier of the U.S. and the Northeast. But you do notice here in parts of Kansas, Colorado, and Nebraska, this is one area where the precip totals here are approaching maybe the wettest March on record. You can also see how high the values are down here in parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, northern Alabama, Mississippi, this region right in through here as well. So just some updated statistics for you here on March total precipitation. Now today, our all hazards weather map from weather.gov here is really highlighting such a broad sector of the United States with extremely strong winds. So there's wind advisories, wind watches, there's high wind warnings out. This is all red flag warning in through here. And there even are some stronger winds here in the Northeast as well. And something to take note of, right in through this part of North Carolina, this is a frost advisory early this morning. So we do need to keep an eye out on those overnight temperatures, early morning temperatures in that region as well. We do have another system also coming into the Pacific Northwest, and you can see right in through here, we even have some winter storm warnings for the Cascades. So let's go take a look at what those winds are doing. We're going to go first to the upper levels of the atmosphere. As we do this, we can see the large ridge kind of cascading right down here along the border here between North America and the Pacific into the Gulf of Alaska. And as this trough ejects, it's actually going to produce a pretty sizable low pressure system that's going to go through the Canadian Prairie and head up toward the Hudson Bay. And what that's going to do is that's going to drag a pretty significant cold front right here through much of the United States, and it's going to knock our temperatures back. But as we've been discussing, this drop in temperature is going to be relatively short-lived, and we're going to rebound those temperatures pretty quickly. As this low-pressure system kind of begins to suck in all the air, take a look at what the wind speeds are going to look like today. So there's the center of the low, just on the border between Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and there's a high-pressure cell here. There's another large high-pressure cell sitting off of the coast, so you can almost just follow the flow into this, right? Isn't that just amazing? I just always find this fascinating, how the atmosphere kind of breathes in this way. And as this pulls this in, very, very strong winds across a broad sector here of the United States. Now, thinking about that this morning, I was like, March has felt extremely windy for me. And again, I live right here in Illinois. And so I decided to create a figure that looks back over the last 30 days and looks at wind speeds from the CDAS data set. And compares them to normal. And everywhere you see, this shading here, this would be windier than normal. So some places here in the plains and in the Midwest have been 4 to 8 miles an hour faster than normal. And to have that large of an anomaly is substantial. You can also see the effects of the fading La Nina here, the weaker winds in this area. And also interesting stuff going on over the Atlantic, which we're going to continue to talk about here. But you get north of about 30 degrees north right there, and the winds have been quite strong. So we can see where we've had our high momentum in place here and our lower momentum in place farther to the south. Now, winds with this next system, let's take a look here. We're going to use the high resolution NAM to see this come through. So let's get into early this morning, work our way through midday. So this is 1 o'clock this afternoon. Look at how strong those southerly winds are there in the 20 to 30 mile an hour range. And then as we go forward throughout the day today, and that low moves into parts of Manitoba, the winds quickly switch around to the west here, racing across parts of Montana and North and South Dakota. And it is pretty clear where the frontal boundary is. I mean, you can see the collision here where the southerly winds hit these northwest winds. So watch this. This is 10 p.m. tonight Central Time. That front comes screaming across early Tuesday morning. Its position is right in through here. All right. And then as we then get through midday on Tuesday, it cuts through parts of the central United States, stretching all the way back down into this part of Texas. And those stronger westerly winds on the backside come through. 5 a.m. Wednesday, it's pretty easy to find where that front is. And unfortunately, as it comes through this area, it will be bringing in more precipitation. We're going to take a look at that in just a few moments. But what I'd like to do next is just kind of show you maximum accumulated wind gusts. So we're going to look at how strong these winds are. And as I play this forward, the model is pretty clear that we could be seeing some wind gusts coming out of the northern plains here. That could be easily exceeding 50 to 60 miles an hour. And also as the front slides through, we're going to have a pocket in through here of very strong winds as well. So please stay aware of how strong these winds are going to be. Now, as I said, we're going to watch the precip on this. So first system's exiting the northeast. This is the second system that's coming through here last night into early this morning, prompting the winter storm warnings for the northern Cascades. So that slides through. Here we are early this morning, working our way through this afternoon and this evening on Monday. And then as we get into early tomorrow morning, this is now Tuesday, 8 a.m. Central Time, you can see the position of the front right in through here. And as that slides through, do you notice that throughout the afternoon on Tuesday, it's drawing into quite a bit of moisture out of the Gulf right in through this area. And as it does so, it's going to be bringing more precipitation. You can see it cutting from Michigan, Indiana, Illinois back to Texas here. And this is going to bring us more scattered showers and thunderstorms. Right now, the forecast is not for these to be severe. There could be some stronger storms embedded in this. But as that moves through, we could get kind of a long frontal squall line that cuts right across the same regions that just saw all that heavy precip. Look at the timing, though. This is 5 a.m. Central Time. That's part of the reason why I'm less concerned about the severity of these storms. They will likely be, there will be a surface-based front, but we'll have to see what the elevated situation looks like here in terms of tapping into some instability. Now, where I've taken this out to is 7 a.m. Wednesday, and there's going to be quite a bit of cold air that's on the back side of this. And I'd like to show you what that's going to do here. So let's flip over to the European model first. We've now seen that system go through, so you can see the snow it's producing in Canada. Here we are getting into Tuesday midday. There's the moisture draw we just talked about. And then we're going to watch in the overnight hours for the storms to be into this region. Now from there, let's get into the day on Wednesday now. This is Wednesday evening, getting into the overnight hours. And what you notice, first of all, is that in parts of Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, the models are flipping this over to snow. And as that pulls through in this area, we could get some snow in the Appalachian Mountains, getting into Pennsylvania and New York. And that low, drawing in on quite a bit of cold air behind it, could be bringing snow to upstate New York and spreading this eventually into Quebec. So again, I'm going to rock back and forth here. This is just going to be Wednesday night through the day on Thursday, getting into early Friday morning as that system wraps out. Behind it, high pressure, cooler weather to finish the week. But then as we get into the weekend, and of course this is Easter weekend, which I know for a lot of farmers, that's kind of a benchmark on when we get a lot of stuff going for our spring season. Where we're going to go into Easter weekend. Take a look here. This would now be 7 a.m. Sunday. Got a low sitting off the coast here. High pressure and control over the south. And overall, much of the U.S. looks to have a relatively dry day on Easter this year. Okay, getting into early next week, there's a couple of features we're going to be watching. Probably most importantly will be what's coming into California. Do you see it over there? There is a bit of a shift in the pattern starting, April 4th through the 11th that I want to talk to you about here in just a few moments. First of all, though, if we just go back, I told you earlier that it's important for us to be doing a bit of model comparison. This is, again, that system bringing in snow on the backside. Is it in the GFS as well? Well, let's get there and see. So the GFS seems to be in lockstep here through Wednesday, and it also, Thursday morning through Thursday midday, is trying to bring snow to the northeast as well. So I've got two separate model runs here, kind of doing the same thing with the precip. And by the way, if we just go on into the weekend, this would be right here. This would be 1 p.m. on Sunday. We can still see that both models showing a very similar thing, plus a big recovery in the temperatures in the midsection of the country. You'll see that in a few moments. So if I put this all together, let's see how much precip we're talking about. Here comes the front sliding into the mid-south, and the European model, let's just take this out 5 days. We do have the potential for putting down another inch of rainfall in this area. So we need to watch that very, very carefully here over the next week or so, because this is an area that is already experiencing quite a bit of flooding. GFS, just to add to this, we do see a very similar pattern. The GFS is wetter farther to the south, though. That's one thing I wanted to point out here with this pattern. Total snowfall, here's what we got through the next week. So we're really primarily confined here to the Canadian Prairie. And then on the back side of that system, there is the potential in the Appalachian Mountains for over 4 inches. And then you see in northern Pennsylvania, getting into this part of New York, we could get 4+ inches of snowfall. We're going to have to watch this very carefully toward the end of this week to see what that temperature profile looks like. But don't be surprised if there's some snowflakes that fall on the backside of this in Michigan, possibly Indiana, but getting here into parts of eastern Kentucky and Ohio. Very difficult time of year to forecast snow, by the way. Probably the most challenging time of year to do that. Okay, from there, let's just look at the next week's worth of precip compared to normal, just to get a quick snapshot. So we see the above average precip through the Canadian Prairie and through this area. Again, this is the one pocket that we don't want to see more rainfall in, but we have to deal with it. And the GFS was wetter farther to the south where I put that X. All right. From there, watch this pattern evolve. So this is the deep trough that cuts through right here and cools everything off east of the Rocky Mountains through the middle and into this week. Well, that deep trough exits off to the east. And you notice immediately a couple of things. As we talked about last week, a large ridge builds in toward Greenland, okay? And at the same time that occurs, we end up getting the trough shifting over to this side of the Arctic, and there is troughing, or a negative P&A pattern, that is here along the west coast. So the flow is going to have to do something like this. Now, if we get the flow doing something like that, first things that we start to think about is, what does this do to west coast precipitation? Secondly, does this kick off several storm systems here in the midsection of the United States? And how quickly do the warmer temperatures start to arrive, and does this bring moisture far enough to the north that we return it to places that have been quite dry? Because as you look here, as I go out, this pattern sticks around through the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th of April. And with the trough sitting off the the west coast here, that just changes the picture quite a bit for the west coast. Let's go have a look. This would be the week 2 precipitation anomalies. And a couple of things to take note of here. This is the first time in a while that we've not seen extensive dryness in the forecast for the west. You even see what's going on in this part of Texas. And so therefore, as systems come out like this, we could expect this to be quite active. And I'll just kind of paint a region in through here where I think we're going to see quite a bit of precip and thunderstorm activity. But again, we're out here in that time period of like the 7th, the 5th of April through the 12th. That's the time period here. And what I'm most excited to see here is that the models are returning the storm track far enough north to at least give us a hint here of bringing in some early April precipitation back to the really dry regions we just talked about. And just so you see, it is also in the GFS. See it? And I think that's a critical picture to be painting for some of the driest regions we've been concerned about. From there, let's talk temperatures. Monday's high temperatures and shading here would be departure from normal. So watch this temperature fluctuation. So very warm right here in the midsection of the country. Cooler air exiting behind that big low east, but there's more cool air coming in. Look at it in the northwest. So here comes Tuesday. You know exactly where our frontal boundary is going to be. As we go from Tuesday into Wednesday, now we've got cold air established in the midsection of the country, warm along the coasts. And now we get into Thursday, and this is going to be a cool day. I'll show you those frost temperatures in a few moments. And as we go from there into Friday, and here's the warm-up on Saturday in the midsection of the country. The cold air exits on Easter Sunday there, and we could be seeing temperatures in the 80s in Nebraska. I mean, this is very, very warm, and this has been a very common theme in this forecast. As I told you, though, I wanted to show you the extent of those frosty temperatures. So let's get this out here, first of all, into early this morning. So remember, we were concerned right in through this area about the potential for some frost, but this is 7 a.m. temperatures from the European today on the 29th. So we can see the cooler air here in the Eastern Corn Belt and Great Lakes Basin. Now, out ahead of this next low, this is now this afternoon and this evening, quite a bit of warm air, but just watch. Ready? We're going to go a little quicker here. You see the front come through? And this is how things look like Wednesday morning. Let's now get to Thursday morning. Look at the extent of the sub-freezing air. I got a real strong, hard break here on my temperature color bar to show you where the frost is going to be, or at least the temperature is going to be below freezing. Now let's go from Thursday morning into Friday morning, and then watch the recovery this weekend. So here we go into Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon and evening. Now we get into, there's stop it there. That's Easter Sunday morning. And then as we go forward, look at the warmth recover in the midsection of the country for early next week. So this goes out to Tuesday and Wednesday, and we're going to go beyond that, just keeping things warm through the next 10 days. So putting that all together, this is day 5 through 10. So that cooler air exits out of the southeast first, and we bring in the much above average temperatures here. Of note, look at how cool it's going to be in parts of Alaska. That really just shows you what this pattern's doing, dropping into this trough here and then running up over a large ridge in place there. European models fully bought into this pattern as well. And as we look out there even farther into the day 10 through 15, we continue to see that same setup. So the jet stream dipping down like this and running up over a broader ridge tucked away somewhere in here in the upper levels. So I'm expecting storm systems in here, but we see the warmth. And that is also in the day 10 through 15 European forecast as well. Now the question becomes, we're approaching for many the last spring frost date. And as we look out there longer term, let's just talk quickly about a couple of controls here. So we've looked at the jet stream dynamics. Let's go to the tropics. We're in phase 4 of the MJO, and it is forecast to move, which is, like we talked about last time, some of the first time we've seen it move around. Now, these would be the warmer phases of the MJO for much of North America, with the cooler phases down here. What I'm talking about when I say that is we've studied this, right? So what you've got here, for example, if this comes back to phase 1, 2, and 3, well, historically, at this time of year, March, April, May, phase 3, as an example, would be cooler across much of the United States. Well, will we get into that phase, late April? There are some indications that might happen. And what I want to finish with today is just to show you what the temperature pattern looks like from Friday's long-range European update. We'll get new updates on this tomorrow. So what you've got here is, as we move this through, you see that as we get into mid to late April, maybe when that happens, we start to see the chances of some cooler air here coming out of the Canadian Prairie into Montana and the Dakotas, possibly still maintaining above average temperatures in the east. But again, we go out here to the end of April and the beginning of May, just something to take note of. If the models have this right, we need to watch this quite carefully in this area because end of April, beginning of May may start off a little cooler in that region while we stay warmer the farther east and south you go. All right. So we'll stop it right there, and I appreciate your attention to start off this week. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Thanks.